It was supposed to be my wedding day, but my best friend decided she'd make a better bride. Right in the middle of the ceremony, my fiancé, scratch that, her fiancé now turned away from me, got down on one knee, and held out the diamond ring I was supposed to be wearing. "Charlotte, you've got your whole life ahead of you," Robert said, his tone dripping with fake sympathy. "But Regina doesn't have much time left. Let her have this wedding, just this once." And just like that, she started crying delicate, trembling sobs that made her look like the most fragile flower in the world. Yet none of that stopped her from slipping my ring onto her finger without the slightest hesitation. The guests clapped, smiled, and toasted the happy couple. Everyone seemed perfectly content with this twisted little fairy tale. Everyone except me. I stood there, the actual bride, completely alone. A punchline in a joke I didn't find funny. But I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I didn't give them the satisfaction of a scene. Instead, I smiled. It wasn't the kind of smile you give when you're happy, it was the kind you give when you're done. Done pretending, done caring, done giving a damn. "Fine," I said, my voice calm and steady. "If you're so eager to play the other woman, Regina, and then by all means take him. I hope you enjoy it." My words clearly hit a nerve. Robert's face darkened, his brows knitting together in frustration. "Charlotte, stop being childish," he said sharply. "This isn't what you think. I'm only doing this to help Regina fulfill her last wish. It's just a few months. You know how sick she is." Regina immediately chimed in, her voice trembling like she'd been wronged. "Charlotte, we used to be so close. How can you stand there and let me suffer like this? Can't you just let me leave this world without regrets?" She looked at me like I was the one who'd ruined her life, as if her betrayal wasn't playing out in front of a live audience. I couldn't help but laugh, a cold, sharp sound that cut through her performance. "Used to be, Regina. Used to be. But I don't recall ever having a friend who enjoyed stealing other people's leftovers." Her face froze, but I wasn't done. "You've always had a thing for taking what's mine, haven't you? But pulling the poor dying girl act just to snatch someone else's fiancé? Wow! Even I didn't think you'd stoop that low." The murmurs in the crowd grew louder. I could feel their eyes darting between us, waiting for the next bomb to drop. I turned to the guests, raising my voice just enough for everyone to hear. "Honestly, Regina, are you going to collapse if you don't have a man? Because from where I'm standing, this whole act is pathetic." Her face turned ghostly pale, and then bright red, her chest heaving like she could barely breathe. She started coughing violently, clutching her chest as if she was about to faint right there on the spot. The whispers around us grew louder. "Wow, she's really committing to the bit, huh? Homewreckers these days have no shame." Regina's breaths came in short gasps, her face a mess of tears and humiliation. But she managed to turn to Robert, her voice trembling as she played her part to perfection. "Robert, I know Charlotte's upset," she said, her words punctuated with dramatic pauses. "But I really am sick. Can't she just let me have this one thing? For old time's sake?" Her voice dripped with self-righteousness, painting me as the villain in this twisted love story. Robert stepped in front of her like a knight in shining armor, shielding her from the big bad wolf me. "Charlotte," he snapped, his voice sharp with anger. "How can you be so heartless? You know Regina can't handle stress in her condition. Are you trying to push her over the edge? Is that what you want?" He turned back to Regina, his voice softening as he gently rubbed her back. "It's okay, Regina. Don't cry. You don't have to explain yourself. I'm here." Regina shook her head, tears streaming down her face. "Robert, don't be mad at Charlotte. If this is how she feels, and then, I'll just take my regrets with me to the grave. It's my fault for asking too much." Her voice cracked, her tears falling perfectly on cue. The room seemed to hold its breath. Of course, Robert took the bait. "Charlotte," he said, his tone full of disappointment. I can't believe you. After all these years, I never thought you'd be this petty. Regina is dying, and instead of supporting her, you're tearing her down. Do you even have a heart? He let go of Regina and reached for my hand as if he could somehow talk me out of my jealousy. Big mistake. I stepped to the side, dodging his grasp, and before he could say another word, smack! The sound of the slap echoed through the room, sharp and clear. The entire hall fell silent. Robert stood there frozen, staring at me like I was an entirely different person. The disbelief in his eyes was almost laughable. He could hardly process that the woman who had once loved him so deeply, the one who had always been calm and composed, would dare slap him across the face. His mouth opened slightly, but no words came out. And then, of course, Regina stepped in to play her part, the delicate heroine. She placed herself between us, her voice trembling with just the right amount of fragility. Charlotte, please, don't take it out on Robert. This is all my fault. If you're angry, just hit me instead. Before I could react, she grabbed my hand and tried to press it against herself as if inviting the blow. Disgusted, I yanked my hand away, but she used the moment to her advantage, staggering backward dramatically before collapsing onto the floor with a loud thud. I stared at her, barely able to hide my disdain. The same manipulative tricks she'd used on others were now being turned on me. I never thought I'd see the day. Without missing a beat, I walked over to the table, grabbed the microphone, and faced the room full of guests, friends, family, and strangers who had come to celebrate what was supposed to be my wedding. Ladies and gentlemen, I began, my voice steady and clear. Thank you all for taking the time out of your busy lives to join us today for my breakup with Robert. Please, enjoy the food and drinks. I dropped the microphone onto the table with a satisfying clang and turned to leave. Behind me, Robert was already losing patience. Robert, do you think Charlotte's really leaving? Regina's soft, quivering voice floated through the room, desperate to keep his attention on her. Let her go, Robert said, his tone cold and dismissive. I paused for the briefest moment, just long enough to feel the last ember of hope extinguish. It didn't hurt, it wasn't even surprising. It was just confirmation of what I already knew. This was the man I had once loved with everything I had. The man I had forgiven over and over, no matter how many times he disappointed me. Back then, all it took was a few sweet words, and I'd come running back like a fool. But this time, it was different. I stopped at the door, just for a second, and let a single tear slip down my cheek. It wasn't for him. It wasn't even for us. It was for the woman I used to be, the one who thought love was worth sacrificing everything for. I wiped the tear away before turning slightly, my voice calm but firm. Robert, I'm done. I'm breaking up with you. He scoffed like I'd just said something ridiculous. Charlotte, stop being dramatic. Why do you have to ruin everything today of all days? He stormed toward me, grabbing my wrist as if he could somehow force me to stay. I yanked my arm free, my movements sharp and deliberate. Behind him, Regina's fragile act kicked into high gear. She clutched her chest, coughing violently, her breath coming out in short, shallow gasps. Robert, I don't feel well. She choked out, her voice barely above a whisper. Robert's attention shifted immediately. He turned to her, his expression flooding with concern as he rushed to her side. Regina, are you okay? He asked, his voice soft and tender. She looked up at him, her wide eyes brimming with tears, and he melted on the spot. I watched as he scooped her up like she was made of glass and carried her toward one of the private rooms, whispering reassurances the entire time. I didn't follow. I didn't say another word. I just stood there for a moment, watching the scene play out like the ending to a bad soap opera. That night, as I sat in the quiet of my room, the memories came flooding back. I thought about all the times I'd needed him and he'd let me down. Like the night I worked late hours past midnight and couldn't find a cab to get home. The streets were empty, and I was exhausted. Desperate, I called Robert, hoping he'd come pick me up. When he finally answered, his voice was annoyed like I'd interrupted something important. Figure it out yourself," he said before hanging up. So I did. I walked home in high heels, my feet blistering and bleeding with every step. Halfway there, it started to rain. The icy water soaked through my clothes, dripping into the open wounds on my feet, sending sharp pains shooting up my legs. By the time I finally made it home, drenched and shivering, Robert was already asleep. Warm, comfortable, and utterly unbothered. The next day, I woke up with a high fever. My head throbbed, my body ached, and every breath felt like fire. I asked Robert to help me buy some medicine. His response, "It's just a little cold, Charlotte." God, why are you so dramatic? You're a grown woman. Can't you handle it yourself? I sat there, watching his back as he walked away, the sound of his retreating footsteps echoing in my ears. It was as if every step he took chipped away at the last bits of warmth I had for him. I left the banquet hall, needing air, needing space, needing to get away from this farce. But before I could make it outside, someone stepped in front of me. It was my younger brother, Regina's most loyal lapdog. I can't believe I have such a cruel and heartless sister. He spat, his face twisted with anger. Regina's already in such bad shape and you still pushed her. I stopped, stared at him, and took a deep breath. My, I said, my voice dripping with sarcasm. You're upset because I slapped your precious Regina? What's next, little brother? Are you going to hit me back on her behalf? His fists clenched and his face grew red with fury. You're just jealous, he growled. You've always been jealous of her. She's everything you're not, kind, gentle, loved. No wonder Robert loves her, not you. I tilted my head, a bitter laugh escaping me. Jealous? Of her? You must be joking. You're so blinded by your obsession with her that you don't even realize you're just another dog in her pack. Do you think she even cares about you? She's already engaged, Samuel. You're not even in line. His eyes burned with hate, and for a moment, I thought he might actually hit me. And then he did. Smack! The slap landed hard across my face, sharp and stinging. My cheek burned, but it wasn't the pain that shocked me, it was the fact that my own brother, the one I'd protected and cared for growing up, had raised his hand against me. For her. Samuel pulled his hand back, his expression flickering with a brief moment of guilt before hardening again. Samuel, I said slowly, my voice cold and low. You're nothing but a traitor. From this moment on, I don't have a brother. Before he could respond, my parents rushed over, drawn by the commotion. What's going on? What happened? My mother asked, her voice high-pitched with concern. She grabbed Samuel's hand, inspecting it with exaggerated care. Oh no, does your hand hurt, my baby? Let me see, does it bruise? You poor thing! My chest tightened with anger as I watched her fuss over him, completely ignoring the blazing red imprint of his hand on my face. Are you kidding me? I said, laughing bitterly. Your precious son just slapped me, and you're worried about whether his hand hurts. My father stepped in, his tone stern. Stop being so dramatic, Charlotte. He just gave you a little slap, what's the big deal? And don't go throwing around threats to cut ties with your family. You think you're in the position to do that? I stared at them, feeling a wave of disgust rise in my chest. After everything I've been through today, after all the humiliation I've endured, this is how you react? But the moment your son's hand gets a little sore, you're tripping over yourselves to coddle him. You're just upset because you couldn't keep your man. My mother snapped. Don't blame others for your failures. If you weren't so useless, none of this would have happened. Samuel straightened up, emboldened by their support. You deserved it. He sneered. Someone needed to teach you a lesson. Now, go apologize to Regina. If you don't blame me if things get physical again. I clenched my fists, my nails digging into my palms. Apologize? To her? Never in my life. The argument was heating up when a sharp, cold voice cut through the noise. "What's all this commotion about? You've turned our engagement party into a circus." It was Robert's mother, her expression icy as she strode toward us. Her eyes landed on me, filled with contempt. She'd never liked me. To her, I was nothing but a girl from a lowly family, a family that had spent more time talking about wedding money and houses than about love. My parents had clung to Robert like he was a golden ticket, and my brother had shamelessly begged him for investments. To her, we were parasites. And she wasn't entirely wrong. My mother, eager to please, forced a smile and turned to her. "Oh, in-law, don't worry. We were just teaching this ungrateful girl a lesson. She's been acting out all day, but we won't let her ruin Robert's big moment." I didn't bother responding. I didn't have the energy to argue anymore. I turned and walked away. "Look at her," Robert's mother muttered loud enough for me to hear. "No manners at all. Can't even greet her elders properly. But what can you expect? She comes from a low-class family. No refinement, no grace, completely unfit for someone like Robert." The words stung, but I didn't stop. When I reached the door, a pair of security guards blocked my path. "Sorry, Miss Charlotte," one of them said, his tone polite but firm. "Miss Regina has asked that no one leave the hall until the ceremony is over." I glared at him, my patience snapping. "Get out of my way. Please, miss," the younger guard said, looking genuinely uncomfortable. "We're just doing our jobs. Don't make this harder for us." I stared at him, noticing how young he was, barely 17, maybe 18. His uniform hung awkwardly on his thin frame, and the exhaustion in his eyes told me he was just trying to make ends meet. I sighed, the anger in my chest twisting into something heavier. This wasn't his fault. None of this was. But Regina? Regina had orchestrated all of it. She wasn't content to just take Robert, she wanted to crush me entirely. 2. Regina stood there, draped in my wedding dress, the one I had carefully chosen, imagining how it would shimmer under the lights on the most important day of my life. And yet, on her, it looked ridiculous. What was once elegant and timeless now seemed cheap, like a costume on an unworthy actress trying to steal the spotlight. Robert, ever the performer, turned to me with that mock sincerity he'd perfected. "The dress is already here, Charlotte. Let Regina borrow it, just this once. It doesn't change anything, you'll still have your moment. When it's your turn, you'll look stunning in it." I didn't respond. I just stared at him, my eyes cold and unfeeling. That dress wasn't mine anymore. It was tainted. Regina, basking in her victory, raised her chin high like a peacock in full display. Her words dripped with smugness, barely disguised as sweetness. "Charlotte, you'll give us your blessing, won't you?" I smiled faintly, picking up a glass of red wine from the table. "Of course," I said, my voice calm and measured. And then, without hesitation, I poured the wine over her head. There was a collective gasp as the hall fell silent. Regina screamed, clutching at the dress as the deep red stain spread across the fabric. "My dress! What have you done?" Her shrill voice cut through the air, drawing every pair of eyes in the room toward us. "Charlotte!" she snapped, her mask slipping. The delicate, fragile act she'd been putting on all night vanished, replaced by raw anger. The real Regina. "What's the matter?" I asked, tilting my head slightly, my tone mockingly innocent. "You wanted my blessing, didn't you? Well, here it is. May you find eternal peace." I reached for another glass of wine, this time pouring it at her feet. The crimson liquid splashed against her once pristine heels, ruining them completely. "Oops," I said softly, a faint smirk tugging at the corners of my mouth. "What a shame. You..." Regina started, her face red with rage, and raised her hand to slap me. But I caught her wrist mid-air, my grip steady and unyielding. My! I said, turning to Robert with a sharp smile. "Your fiancé seems to have quite the temper." Such strength doesn't seem like someone who's been sick and weak, does she? Regina froze, her eyes wide as the realization hit her. Everyone was watching. She quickly switched tactics, her expression crumbling into one of practiced vulnerability. Her lips quivered and tears welled up in her eyes. "Charlotte," she said, her voice trembling. "I know I've upset you by wearing this dress. I'll take it off right now and give it back to you." "Go ahead," I said flatly. "Take it off. Right here. Let's see it." Her gaze flicked to Robert, silently pleading for help, as she hesitated. "Charlotte, stop this nonsense," Robert snapped, stepping forward with barely concealed irritation. "I've already been more than patient with you. Don't embarrass yourself any further." He gestured toward the room, his voice sharp and commanding. "You're only still here because we wanted to include you. We even saved you a seat for the photos to make sure no one could say we excluded you. But if you keep acting like this, don't blame me for losing my temper." I felt a pang in my chest, a faint, lingering ache that I thought I'd already snuffed out. But I pushed it down. "I don't need a seat," I said quietly. "I don't need any of this. Do you know what I feel right now? Disgust." I took a slow, steady breath, letting the weight of my words sink in. "Robert, I told you earlier this is over. We're done." For a moment, he just stared at me as if he couldn't believe what he was hearing. Then he let out a bitter laugh, his voice dripping with condescension. "Breaking up?" he scoffed. "Charlotte, do you really think you can just walk out and live comfortably without me? Your parents already spent the wedding money. I gave them hundreds of thousands to buy your brother a house and a car. If you leave now, you'll have to pay back every single cent. Do you have that kind of money?" His smugness was unbearable, and suddenly, everything clicked. That's why my parents had groveled before Robert's mother, why they refused to hold him accountable no matter how he treated me. They'd already sold me off. To them, I wasn't their daughter, I was a bargaining chip. No wonder Robert's mother looked down on me, calling me greedy and unworthy. To her, I wasn't a person. I was just part of the transaction. Robert stepped closer, softening his tone as if he'd just given me the most generous offer in the world. "Charlotte," he said, "I'm giving you a chance. Just pretend you didn't say anything earlier, and we can go back to the way things were. No harm done." I felt my stomach churn. "No," I said firmly, my voice steady and unwavering. "We are done. I'm not saying it again." His face darkened, his eyes narrowing as he leaned closer. His voice dropped to a low, menacing tone. "Charlotte, stop being ridiculous. Do you really think anyone else would want you after this? After all, we've been together for 8 years. 8 wasted years," I said coldly. "And now, they're over." His expression hardened further, his pride refusing to let him back down. "Fine," he said, his voice sharp. "You want to break up? Then it's simple. Either you stay and marry me, or you pay back every cent of the wedding money. And trust me, I'll make sure you pay it." 3. Robert's smug certainty that I couldn't repay the wedding money made me sick to my stomach. He acted as though he had me completely under his thumb, as if I couldn't possibly escape his control. That confidence of his, the way he thought he'd already won it, was disgusting. Meanwhile, the internet was buzzing with gossip. Everywhere I turned, people were talking about me being dumped by Robert, calling it the ultimate soap opera, the scorned fiancée, the scheming mistress, the tragic engagement party. To make matters worse, someone had uploaded a heavily edited video of the incident online. Naturally, it was twisted to make me look like the villain. I sat in a cafe scrolling through the comments as I nibbled on a slice of cake. "Is that the mistress? She actually had the nerve to crash someone else's engagement party. Disgusting. Yeah, and she even attacked someone who's dying. What kind of person does that? People like her deserve to be slapped in public. This can't just blow over. Where is she? I'll tear her apart myself. Poor Regina. I couldn't help but laugh. It was so over the top it was almost comical. Regina must have hired an entire PR team to spin this in her favor. The edited footage, paired with the flood of comments supporting her, had turned me into a walking punchline overnight. Back home, Samuel, the so-called brother I'd grown up with, stormed into the room, his face twisted with anger. "Charlotte!" he shouted, pointing a finger at me. "Do you even realize what you've done? Regina's in the hospital because of you, and here you are, lounging around like you're on vacation." I leaned back on the sofa, crossing my arms as I watched him rant. "She won't even answer my messages anymore," he fumed, pacing back and forth like a man on the edge. "And the cake I sent her, her favorite cake, she sent it back. Do you know how worried I am?" He was practically shaking with rage, his face an alarming shade of red. "If anything happens to her because of this," he growled, "I'll make sure you pay for it." I let out a cold laugh, my voice cutting through his tantrum. "Samuel, have you forgotten who I am? I'm your sister. And yet, here you are, screaming at me like I'm the enemy all for her. She's not an outsider," he snapped, his voice filled with righteous indignation. "Regina isn't just anyone. She's family to me. I've treated her like family for a long time." "Family?" I repeated, a bitter smile curling at my lips. "Fine. If she's your family, and then go to her. From now on, you and I have nothing to do with each other." Before he could respond, I grabbed him by the arm and shoved him out the door. His shouting quickly faded as I slammed it shut, leaving me in blessed silence. Later that evening, my phone buzzed. My friend's calm voice greeted me on the other end of the line. "Charlotte, I've found something," he said, his tone serious. I straightened up. "Go on." There was a pause before he continued, his voice steady but deliberate. "I looked into Regina's medical history. She's not sick. The records are fake. She bribed someone at the hospital to create them." I felt a cold smile tug at the corners of my mouth. "I knew it. I've sent the evidence to your email," he added. Opening my inbox, I found everything I needed, proof of Regina's lies, her fake diagnosis, and more. I had suspected for a while that her story didn't add up. After all, how could someone who was supposedly terminally ill have the energy to party all night or go camping? Her behavior didn't exactly scream dying woman. And now, I have the receipts to prove it. As I dug through the files, I found even more skeletons in Regina's closet. Turns out, she'd met some wannabe rich guy during one of her late-night clubbing sprees. Things had spiraled, and she ended up pregnant. But when she realized the guy was a fraud, she started looking for someone else to take responsibility. Enter Robert. The moment Regina confessed her love for him, complete with a sob story about her fake illness, he jumped at the chance to play the hero. It was laughable, really. A liar and a fool perfectly matched. I wondered how Robert would react when he found out he'd been played as Regina's backup plan. Of course, Regina had been careful to maintain her saintly image online. Her social media was a pristine FOD, filled with soft-lit sunsets and poetic captions. Her latest post was no exception, a photo of a gorgeous sunset, paired with the caption, "Grateful for your presence in my final days. I have no regrets in this life." I scrolled further, my fingers tightening around my phone. Each post was a carefully curated snapshot of her travels. The places she visited were exactly the ones I had dreamed of seeing with Robert. For years, I had begged him to travel with me, to see the world and experience its beauty. But he always had an excuse: he was too busy, too tired, too focused on work. And now, there he was with her, smiling and carefree in the photos. Before I realized it, my thumb accidentally hit the like button on one of her posts. Seconds later, my phone rang. It was Robert. "Charlotte," he said, his voice soft and careful, like he was trying to calm a storm. "About those photos, don't be upset. We can still visit those places someday. Regina doesn't have much time left. This is probably her only chance to see them. In the background, I heard Regina's voice. She was screaming. Charlotte. Robert said hurriedly. I've got to go. Regina just fell. I need to take her to the hospital. I stared at the phone as the call ended, and then laughed softly to myself. Without a second thought, I blocked his number. Keeping someone like him in my life would only poison my mood. Meanwhile, the internet had finally turned on Regina. The same people who had praised her as a tragic heroine were now tearing her apart. The truth about her lies had started to surface, and the backlash was swift and brutal. 4. Regina, clearly rattled by the growing backlash online, decided to find some comfort by lording it over me. She sent me a video dripping with smugness. Charlotte. Her voice cooed from my phone. Robert took me to that beach you always dreamed of visiting. It's so beautiful. The stars at night? You can't even count them all. I let out a dry laugh, shaking my head. Didn't he just rush you to the hospital? Looks like he still hasn't figured out your fake medical records. Honestly, I'm not surprised he's as gullible as ever. Trash, through and through. That's why I threw him out in the first place. I thought that would shut her up, but no. Regina wasn't done. Oh, Charlotte, you're so bitter. Her voice was thick with mock pity. It pains you to witness me with everything you once had, doesn't it? Robert, your pride, even your idiot brother Samuel's been spending a fortune trying to hire the best doctors in the world for me. Sweet, isn't it? I froze. A fortune. I repeated, my voice sharp. Where would Samuel get that kind of money? A sinking feeling hit me like a punch to the gut. My heart was pounding, and I opened my banking app. The screen loaded, and I stared at the numbers. Or rather, the lack of them. Every single account I had emptied. Cold panic clawed its way up my chest as I called the bank. The answer came quickly, and it hit even harder. My accounts had been drained in a series of transfers, all traced back to one person, Samuel. I dialed his number, my hands shaking. The number you've dialed is unavailable. Please try again later. The robotic voice on the line was cold, indifferent, and final. It felt like a door slamming shut in my face. Samuel. My brother. The one person I thought I could still rely on. He'd stolen everything I'd worked for. Was this what betrayal felt like? My vision blurred with rage as I grabbed my phone and called the police. I froze all of Samuel's accounts on the spot. If he thought he could get away with this, he had another thing coming. At the police station, I sat calmly in the interrogation room, sipping tea as Samuel was dragged in. His hands were cuffed, his face twisted in a mix of fear and fury. He glared at me like a cornered animal. Charlotte! Did you call the cops on me? I'm your brother. How could you do this? You're such a miserable... Enough! A police officer barked, and Samuel flinched, his bravado shrinking in an instant. But his bitterness didn't fade. You're just jealous of Regina. He spat, his voice trembling with anger. All I wanted was to help her. To find her the best doctors, cure her illness, then maybe you'd get back with Robert, and what? I cut him off, my voice sharp. So you can keep groveling at Regina's feet like the pathetic lapdog you are? His face twisted with rage. You don't want her to get better. You want her gone. Why couldn't it be you who got sick instead of her? The slap came before I could even think. The sound of it echoed through the room, sharp and final. My palm stung, but I didn't care. Samuel. I said, my voice low but steady. Did you think I wouldn't find out? That I wouldn't notice when you drained every cent from my accounts? Did you really think you'd get away with it? Not long after, my parents arrived. The moment they saw Samuel sitting there in handcuffs, they rushed to his side like he was the victim. Son, what's going on? Why are you here? What happened? My mother cried, her voice high-pitched and panicked. A police officer stepped forward, his tone firm. Your son illegally transferred funds from someone else's account. He's being held on charges of financial fraud. My mother's face turned pale, but she quickly snapped back. That's ridiculous. How can it be fraud when it's family money? It's all in the family, officer. The officer didn't flinch. The transfer was malicious. If you have further questions, I suggest consulting a lawyer. My mother turned to me then, her face red with fury. Charlotte. He's your brother. How could you do something like this? All that money you've earned, it belongs to this family. How could you call the police on him? I stared at her, my voice ice cold. Because if I didn't, I'd be the one sitting in that chair. Samuel sneered from the other side of the room. It wasn't even your company's money, it was in your personal account. I rolled my eyes. I don't care whose account it was, Samuel. You stole from me. And now, you're going to pay it back. Every cent. My mother's sobbing grew louder. Charlotte, please. He's your brother. Just let it go. No. I snapped. If you want to protect him, figure it out yourselves. Sell something. Pay me back. I don't care. My father, who had been silent until now, sighed heavily. His shoulders slumped, and he looked years older. Charlotte. He said quietly. Don't do this. Don't let it go this far. I didn't respond. In the end, they had no choice. My parents sold their newly bought house and car, practically giving them away just to scrape together the money to pay me back. When Samuel was finally released, his eyes burned with hatred as he looked at me. Charlotte. He hissed, his voice shaking with venom. From now on, you're non-existent to me. I don't have a sister anymore. My mother, tears streaming down her face, pointed a trembling finger at me. You monster! How could you betray your own brother? You're nothing but a curse on this family. I should have never given birth to such a heartless daughter. She spat. I met her gaze, my voice calm and steady. And I should have never had a family like this. I turned to leave but paused at the door. You wanted me gone? Fine. From now on, don't expect a single thing from me. I'm done. 5. I originally thought Robert and Regina would be gone for a month. But to my surprise, they came back after only 10 days. I heard something happened at your place, so I rushed back overnight. Charlotte, you know how much I love you, right? Forget about those vampire parents of yours. I'll take care of you from now on. I didn't look at him. I calmly handed him a card. Robert, let's break up. Charlotte, I know you're upset. Let's not make a scene right now, all right? Do you not understand what I'm saying? I said, we're breaking up. My firm tone lit a fire in him. Charlotte, how long are you going to keep this up? I promised I'd marry you. I've already given you a way out, so why are you still being so unreasonable? He thought, as always, that if he sweet-talked me, I'd come crawling back. But this time, he was wrong. Unreasonable. You held a wedding with Regina, went on a honeymoon with her, and now I'm making room for her to take the title of Mrs. Robert. What more do you want? Charlotte, there's nothing between her and me. I was just helping her fulfill one of her wishes. Why are your thoughts so dirty? Dirty? Do you really want me to spell out what you two did? If you don't feel filthy, I sure do. Regina looked pitiful and said, Charlotte, please don't misunderstand us. I promise I won't bother you two anymore. Look how considerate Regina is. And then look at you, always suspicious, jealous, and making a scene. Break up? Fine. Return the entire wedding money or prepare to marry me and play your role as Mrs. Robert. He was sure I wouldn't be able to come up with the money. Knowing my vampire-like parents, it was unlikely they'd return a single cent. But this time, he miscalculated. The money on this card includes the wedding money you gave my parents and all the money they borrowed from you over the years." He looked stunned, his face turning from pale to red to pale again. "That's impossible. How could you come up with that much money? If you don't believe me, feel free to check. From now on, there's nothing between us. Don't show up in front of me again. You disgust me." My resolute tone clearly unsettled him. "No. I don't agree." Like a madman, he grabbed me tightly. "Break up. I don't agree. You said it yourself, if I returned the wedding money, we'd break up. Now that I have, why are you suddenly so reluctant?" This man wanted everything both ways. He gave me a choice, but now he was pretending to care about me. Too little, too late. But his crazed behavior made me feel a tinge of fear. "Charlotte, say it. We're not breaking up. Say it." His voice shifted from anger to fear and finally to desperation. "Charlotte, please. Let's not break up." I struggled to free myself from his grip, but the harder I tried, the tighter he held me. I could barely breathe before I finally passed out. When I woke up, I was already at Robert's family estate. He'd instructed everyone there not to let me leave, not even a step beyond the property. "You'll never leave me," he said, almost deranged. "Are you planning to imprison me?" He didn't answer. He just stirred the porridge in his bowl, blew on it to cool it down, and brought the spoon to my lips. I turned my head away. "Do you realize it's a crime to illegally detain someone? I don't care. As long as you stay by my side, I don't care about anything. Charlotte, let's go back to how we used to be, okay? We'll get our marriage license tomorrow. In your dreams." He kept me locked in the estate, venting his twisted desires on me, demanding over and over again that I say I wouldn't leave him. After several days of not seeing Regina, she showed up at the estate. "Robert, my condition has worsened without you. Please, come take care of me." Robert pressed his lips together, his eyes only on me. Regina's eyes were filled with resentment and frustration. Over the next few weeks, he came to the estate every day, more time than we had spent together in our entire year-long relationship. Seeing me grow thinner and weaker, he even started cooking soup for me himself. I couldn't take the torture anymore, so I pretended to agree to marry him. On the way to the courthouse, he held onto my shoulder tightly. Once we were inside, I desperately tried to signal to the staff to call the police. But Robert clutched my hand so firmly, never looking away for even a second. The staff didn't understand my signals. They just smiled, thinking we were a loving couple. After we got the marriage certificate, we stepped outside. I bolted the moment Robert let his guard down. But because of my malnourishment, it didn't take long for him to catch up to me. "Help! Somebody help me!" My cries for help drew a crowd. "She's my wife," Robert said, holding up the marriage certificate. "She's just upset and throwing a tantrum." The onlookers laughed and dispersed. Once again, Robert dragged me back to the family estate. After my failed escape, his watch over me became even stricter. 6. To prevent me from escaping, Robert locked me in the room during the day and even sealed the windows shut. He arranged for someone to deliver food and water to me at regular intervals. When Regina found out that Robert and I had gotten married, she completely lost it. All her careful planning, everything she worked so hard for, had been effortlessly taken from her. She was consumed with jealousy. Robert wasn't home yet. Regina strutted around the estate like she owned the place, barking orders at the staff and yelling that she wanted to see me. "What kind of tricks did you pull to make Robert so obsessed with you, you little tramp?" She banged on my door, venting her frustration and resentment. Honestly, I wished she'd just break the door down. But after a while, the banging stopped. "Regina, is that all you've got? You couldn't even hold on to the man who was practically handed to you on a silver platter." I taunted her. As expected, my words set her off, and she started screaming insults at me like a lunatic. Regina never put on an act in front of me. "Regina, I'll give you one last chance. Help me get out of here, and I'll make sure you get the title of Mrs. Robert. The hallway outside my door went silent. Charlotte, what are you so smug about? You only have the upper hand because you met Robert a few years before I did. Hey, exactly. Since I've known him longer, I know him better. Don't you want to work with me? She was quiet for a long time. Why should I trust you? You've seen it yourself. Why would Robert go to the trouble of locking me up? Because he's afraid of me breaking up with him, afraid I'll leave. If you help me escape, you'll have a better shot at getting close to him. And once I'm gone and we're divorced, you're carrying his child, aren't you? Do you really think he won't marry you then? To make Robert seem even more desirable, I deliberately painted him as the perfect partner. His company's worth billions. When your child is born, they'll inherit at least 30% of it. Tell me, what could you possibly want that you wouldn't be able to get? See that soup on the table? Robert made it himself for me. He said I've been looking too thin lately. If I weren't here, he'd be the one making soup for you, taking you to all those high society events. Regina couldn't hold back anymore. She couldn't resist the thought of that kind of luxurious life. What do you want me to do? If you can't even figure that out, how do you plan on becoming Mrs. Robert? The next few days were spent in careful anticipation. Robert came back every evening at 6, like clockwork, to spend time with me. As usual, he cooked for me, held my hand while we walked around the estate, and watched the sunset together. He pretended to be the perfect, loving husband, but it was all an act. If I didn't know how twisted he was at night, I might have actually believed him. The front gates of the estate remained tightly shut. But Regina didn't disappoint me. She showed up at Robert's mother's house with a pregnancy report in hand, sobbing. I know I have no right to be with Robert because of my illness, but the child is innocent. I can't let my baby grow up without a father. I don't have much time left. All I want is to ensure my child has a secure future. Robert's mother listened with a stony expression. Over the years, Robert had created his fair share of scandals, and it wasn't unusual for women to show up at the house causing trouble. But this time was different. This was serious. This was the first grandchild of the Robert family. It had to be handled properly. If the child is truly part of the Robert family, we won't abandon them. Robert's mother said. She placed a check for $1 million on the table. Regina, while I'm not fond of Charlotte, the fact remains that she is Robert's wife. It wouldn't make sense for them to divorce right after getting married. Regina's eyes lit up at the sight of the check. Of course, I won't interfere with Robert and Charlotte's life, Regina said with a calm expression, tucking the check into her purse. But before I go, I want to see Charlotte. It's my fault for wronging her first. After all, my child will only have her to rely on in the future. With Robert's mother's approval, a servant led Regina to open the door to my room. After being locked up in that estate for so long, I felt like I was rotting away. Once I got out, I promised myself I'd make sure this pair of scumbags paid for everything they'd done to me. The air outside was so fresh, and I wrapped myself up tightly before heading straight to the police station. The evidence? My body was enough. When the police came to arrest Robert, he looked utterly shocked. What is this? This is illegal. I'll sue all of you, he shouted. Robert, one of the officers said coldly. The harm you've caused Charlotte is clear and undeniable. Kidnapping, rape, forced marriage, any one of these is enough to put you behind bars for years. That's nonsense. She's my wife. She agreed to it, right, Charlotte? He looked at me, his voice almost pleading, but I turned my head and refused to meet his gaze. You claim I hurt her? Where's the proof? Except for not letting her leave the house, didn't I treat her well every single day? She had food, drinks, everything. The medical examiner held up the report. I suggest you take a good look at this, they said. The report detailed bruises all over my body, multiple tears, signs of prolonged malnutrition, and other evidence. It also included testimony from the servants at the estate. As Robert was being dragged away, I stepped closer to him. "Robert!" I whispered. "The child in Regina's belly isn't yours. Do you know why I never got pregnant during the 8 years we were together? Because you're infertile." His eyes went from shock to fury. "Regina isn't even pregnant." I continued. "I've been malnourished for months. Every time I ate the meals you cooked, I threw them up immediately. The bruises on my body? Some of them I caused myself, but the rest those were all you. You witch! You effing witch!" He screamed, struggling against the officers restraining him. "I loved you. I loved you so much. Why are you doing this to me?" The more he struggled, the tighter they held him down. I pulled out the divorce papers I'd prepared. "If you don't want your mother to have a hard time, you'd better sign these," I said. "Otherwise, I can't guarantee what will happen to Regina." Robert's voice cracked. "Charlotte, I'm sorry. Please, don't let Regina into the Robert family. I'm begging you." But why would I let him have his way? After all, his mother stood by and watched while I was imprisoned. Not long after, back at the Robert estate, Regina strutted in as if she owned the place, boldly demanding that Robert's mother hand over part of the family assets. "If you don't give me the money, I'll just get an abortion," she threatened. Robert's been sentenced to 20 years. By the time he gets out, do you think he'll still be able to have kids? If you can't keep this grandson, your family line ends with you. Regina sipped her tea, looking smug and confident. "Regina, let's discuss this calmly," Robert's mother said, trying to placate her. "You want money? Fine. Once you give birth to the child, I'll give you whatever you want. I've already hired the best doctors to treat your condition. They'll make sure you live a few more years." "Live a few more years?" Regina laughed, her face twisting with mockery. "I don't want doctors and I don't want to wait. I want money. Right now. Hurry up." Just as Robert's mother was about to write the check, I barged in with a group of people. "What are you doing here, you witch? You're the reason my son is in prison." Robert's mother screamed, clutching her chest in anger. "I'm only here because your son asked me to help you." I placed a stack of documents on the table, Regina's fake medical records, evidence of bribery, and her fake pregnancy report. "As your former daughter-in-law, consider this a friendly warning," I said with a smile. "Regina's medical history is fake, and the child in her stomach isn't Robert's." "What?" Robert's mother collapsed onto the couch, her face ashen. "All the evidence is right here. Don't let yourself get played into raising someone else's grandchild while you're still smiling about it. You witch, Charlotte!" Regina screamed, but my people restrained her before she could lash out. That night, Robert's mother was so furious she ended up in the hospital. Whatever happened after that had nothing to do with me. With a few $1 million in hand, I left for the place I'd dreamed of for years and started a new life. The pain and humiliation of the past were blown away like dust in the wind. After all, life goes on, and my future is just beginning.